Hey, ladies and gentlemen of art. I want to talk to you about some of the purposes people create art for, historically and in modern times. So let's go ahead and look at some prehistoric art. So I don't know if you guys know like the definition of prehistoric. It's something about like before we settled down, created agriculture, made written language. So this is when people were maybe um, not having any words to express themselves yet. And so we have to basically figure everything out by looking at what we think it was used for instead of knowing because they're telling us. So these are some cool, I want to see these so bad. There's a lot of prehistoric art I want to see in my lifetime. Um, and these are called the Nazca lines. There's a bunch of different figures. This is a bird, and it is visible from airplanes. So, like, if you're flying on an airplane, you can see this. But if you're on the ground, it's just like these lines, and the picture doesn't make sense. But for some reason, the ancient people or prehistoric people of Peru made this. We don't really know what it was for. I mean, a good guess of ancient art or prehistoric art is always that it was a religious purpose or a spiritual reason for making it, but we don't know for sure. Anywhere you go around the world, you could basically find representations of the female form. So, women's bodies. I mean, honestly, still can't you find women's bodies no matter where you go? It's always been a really big topic in art. And we don't really, I mean, so of course, if you're making something like this, it seems like it's some sort of tribute to fertility and the fact that women can make babies. But it could also be that people have just been obsessed with the body and they're interested in females. So when they're traveling along, they want to have a little reminder of what their pregnant wife looked like or something, or their partner, if you don't have a wife in that time. My experience with this piece of cave art from Australia is cool because I looked at this and then I did a little research about what it's depicting or what we think it is about. And these are spirits, and I felt like they look like ghosts to me. Like, of course, they're humanoid because they have their nose and their eyes. But I just felt like they were ghosts, and I'm right. So even though the people that made this, you know, thousands of years ago they were making this for themselves, I can still experience it and think about it when I look at it. And I just love that about prehistoric art. Prehistoric art is one of my favorites in ancient art because it just being next to something that someone created that they created for like the purpose of beauty or religion or like what humanity means, and seeing it in modern times just makes me feel really close to all humans. And I like that feeling. So of course, we don't know exactly what these are for because we can't talk to anybody who made them, and we also don't have any written words about what they were made for, but we can guess it's probably like a religious or spiritual purpose. These are spirits that have to do with water, probably, and so, in Australia, the native people would have been relying on rains and storms for water, so that was probably a big deal. So then we get to ancient art, and ancient art means that we have some idea of what these people were making these things for because we have written accounts of what they were doing. So this is Vikings, and not all Norse people are Vikings, but Vikings are Norse people. And so this is a what's called the figurehead on like a boat. So you can see they've taken a lot of time to carve it. It looks powerful to me. This thing is like aggressive. They're going in their longboats to pillage. So here's some sort of jewelry that they made. I think it's very interesting. It looks like I would like to make some sci-fi based on this. It's pretty sci-fi looking to me. But of course, they're, going around taking other people's wealth, and so they're trying to increase their status. And then there's also a lot of religious purposes. If you look into Norse mythology, you can find out some of those. So ancient art of the Greeks is communication. So they were really interested in figuring out the world around them. And so they did a lot of writings that are still really important to us in modern times. And then, of course, adornment, making yourself look like you have status because you have this beautiful gold jewelry. Not everyone can afford beautiful gold jewelry, so you're special if you can. And it's pretty cool. You can see these are on these paintings that are on um, pots and vases are a lot of times mythological stories. So if you've heard of Greek mythology, you can often see the stories on these vases. Okay, some ancient Egyptian art. So here's an example of their written language. It is, of course, hieroglyphics. And so this is kind of like a storybook, and this is the words and these are the pictures. But the Egyptians were really obsessed with the afterlife, especially the afterlife of the king. Basically, all of the things they're doing are for the afterlife of the king. So you build them a beautiful gold sarcophagus to bury them in. You put all kinds of furs and riches inside of their burial um, burial place, which could be, of course, a pyramid. I mean, talk about like the pyramid is an incredible representation of status, right? That thing is big and it was huge and it took a lot of people's lives to make it. But they all make it so that the king, the pharaoh, can have a good afterlife. So East Asian art is something I don't know very much about because when I took an art history class, it was Western art. So I was just looking into some of these ancient styles, and I really need to get a book and read about it because it's very interesting. But of course, there's religious purposes, spiritual purposes. If you want to consider the Great Wall of China art, I would, because it's like it's not just a wall made for being a wall. It also has objects and stuff built into it that beautify it. That's just an intense thing that you can see from outer space, and people built that by hand, and that's pretty amazing. So there's also communication, so people are writing about what they believe. Philosophers, this is a philosopher, Confucius, and a painting of him. This is a cool water vessel, and I just love it because it's so different than all the other ones. Like the shape is just totally different. And this is a Korean um, artwork for putting water in, and I think it's really cool. So this, you're definitely like a rich, famous person if you have this to pour water out of, because most people just have like a cup type thing. So it's pretty cool. But I need to learn more about it. Another thing I know about specific indigenous culture stories, like I know quite a bit about Mayan history because I've read about it, but I don't know about all indigenous Americans. This is North America and South America. But one of the things that I really like about it is that a lot of the art is also made into things that you use. So it's like utility. So this is a blanket and it's woven, and it's not just woven like the easiest way possible. No, this is woven for beauty and status. So yes, you're going to use the blanket. It's going to be part of your life, but you're not just making a blanket for warmth. You're also making it for beauty and meaning and symbology. And I like that a lot. I think it's very, very cool. And we still do that. And then, of course, this is a Mayan style. You can just tell by looking at it. And of course, there's a lot of religious and spiritual meanings in both of these pieces of art. Ancient art in the Middle East is something we almost never talk about, but we should, because there's a lot of it. In fact, one of the next slides is going to be about the Middle Ages. And while these Middle Ages were happening in Europe, in the rest of the world, there was like art explosions. And most people don't know that. This is in Jordan, modern day Jordan. It's called Petra, and it's a rock city. It's carved out of rock. Like, what? It's so beautiful. I cannot wait to go there sometime in my life. I want to see it. And of course, this is definitely a power and status symbol right here. But of course, like almost everything, there's religious and spiritual meanings to it as well. So in the Middle Ages, we go backwards a little bit. So humans have been figuring out how to make nice art. And then in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church gets control of everything. And they believe that there shouldn't be anybody doing anything that is not religious in purpose. So all of the art is religious, all of the music is religious. And people stop like advancing their art, kind of. So it kind of goes backwards a little bit. Like we've seen better art than this right here, but this is a Middle Age piece. This one, I mean, parts of it are pretty cool. Like it's got this gold leaf in the back, so that's literally gold on the wall that is like pounded into really thin sheets and you can put it on the wall. So that's kind of a cool technique. But then you also look at this baby and you're just like, what? That's supposed to be a baby? Like, they lose a lot of their artistic ability in the Middle Ages because it's just basically the only art you can make is what is commissioned by the church. And so most of the art is religious during the Middle Ages. And I'm sorry, it's just not very good artistically speaking. When we look at art history in the past, we don't really feature a lot of middle-aged art. Like, you don't have reproductions of it in people's houses because it's just not very good. Like, it's not as good as other art. So Renaissance art is definitely featured in people's homes. And this is when the really most important thing about the Renaissance is that people start returning to looking at the Greek ideas. So they're like, wow, the Greeks were interested in learning about the world, not just about religion. And so you start getting a lot of secular things in art. And I know this is a religious painting, but it's Michelangelo, and he didn't even want to really paint this. He was like really pissed off. The Catholic Church made him do it because all of the art was sponsored by patrons still. So you kind of still have to paint whatever the person that is paying you wants you to do. But subjects start becoming more interesting and the styles start becoming a lot more interesting. And there's regional styles. So there's things going on everywhere in Europe during the Renaissance. It's really cool. And you can see in this painting, I know this is supposed to be God reaching out towards Jesus, but it also is glorifying human beings. I mean, if you look here, this is not just a spiritual purpose. This is an excellent painting of a nude man. Look at his hand. Like, the hand is what always gets me. These two hands just are so perfectly sculpted in this paint and look incredibly realistic. And so we get cool things in the Renaissance. Another Renaissance artist that is one of my faves is Leonardo da Vinci. Of course, he's most famous for the Mona Lisa, but he did a lot of other things that were really important too. In fact, this drawing of a man, and this has a name, but I can't remember it right now. This went out on a spaceship that we sent into outer space in 1977 to carry messages to other intelligent life forms. So we put this on here to represent what the human form looks like. And Leonardo da Vinci drew this. So this is a celebration of the human body. Like, it's very cool. Mona Lisa is, of course, not really a religious painting. It's just for fun. There's so much lore about this painting that I feel like it's kind of funny. It's actually pretty small. It's a little painting, and people are obsessed with it. I think there's way cooler pieces of art personally, but it's good. I mean, who am I? Like, I'm saying Leonardo da Vinci is good. Come on, Miss Arneson, I don't have the rights for that. But here is a self-portrait of da Vinci. So he drew a lot of things. He was really into science, and he drew a lot of science-related things as well. And then, of course, I mean, the only reason to draw a self-portrait, nobody's commissioning you to make it. It's just self-expression. You're making it because you want to. You want to say something about yourself. Okay, so here is a bunch of modern art. And in the last 200 years, we've gone through a lot of art movements. I did not include all of them here, just some little tidbits about them, so you can read those. I'm not going to tell you exactly what they are. But in our time right here, postmodernism, which is basically like from the 70s till the present, anything goes. Like, you could do whatever you want in art. I picked this because I feel like it's an important message of our time period. It's, of course, George Floyd, and this is painted on a wall. So this would be considered graffiti for a lot of human history, but now we're recognizing that folk art created by the common man, is important and beautiful and has meaning. And so we just have a lot more things that can be considered art in our time period, and I think that's cool. Okay, what are the purposes of modern art? Like, why are people doing this? One of them is entertainment. So, of course, there's all these Avengers movies. I don't see the Avengers movies because I just don't really think they're very good. Like, I'm not interested in them. But they are making a lot of money off of these, and a lot of people love them. And So it's entertainment. It's art has been created for entertainment for a long time. Like for example, Greek plays and stuff. Those are of course for entertainment. This is Mr. Arneson's favorite movie, and it's called 2001: A Space Odyssey. And if you haven't seen it, I would not recommend watching it. Or even if you have seen it but you didn't like it, you need a guide. Like you need help when you're watching this movie. I still, when I watch it, I mean, I've seen it like 5 times with Mr. Arneson, and I still ask him questions about it every single time because he's an expert on it. It's his favorite movie. He spent time looking into it. It's a sci-fi, and once you watch it, you'll notice that a lot of sci-fi that came after this movie is paying homage to it. So they are putting little tidbits in the movies that are Kubrick 2001: A Space Odyssey-esque. This movie is also a work of art. I don't know if The Avengers is a work of art. How can we tell? We got to give it some time and see if people are still watching The Avengers in 40 years. People are still watching and talking about this 40 years later. Okay, so another reason for art is self-expression. I think the George Floyd picture was, of course, a really important um, self-expression, like about grief and honoring George Floyd. But artists in modern times can just make art to express themselves. And Van Gogh, Vincent van Gogh, you might know him. He's famous for chopping off his ear. He he was never famous during his lifetime. He didn't make any money off of his art, but he just felt compelled to do it. He lived in poverty. He was very depressed. He surely had mental illnesses. And in the last few years of his life, he just created a lot of artwork, and that was due to self-expression. And then eventually he did commit suicide. But you can see this is not a happy painting, and you can tell in a lot of his works that he's expressing his emotions um, and how he feels. This is one of my all-time favorite singers, Fiona Apple. She came out in the 90s, so you probably don't know who she is. But she's on her fifth album. I think this is the fifth one. And she really is not making art for anybody but herself. But the cool thing is that her art is so good that everybody else likes it anyway. Or at least I do. So this is her newest album, and it is weird compared to her other albums. It really is. But I love it because it's self-expression, and I just think that she is an intelligent person, and I should pay attention to what she has to say. Modern art can also be propaganda, which is, of course, art or visuals or messages that are trying to get you to believe something in particular. So for this one, of course, this is like a really racist depiction of a Japanese person, but in World War II, that's how like almost all of the cartoons are because they were trying to fight a war against them. So making people hate them and think that they were less than human was part of the strategy for winning the war. And so you can look at propaganda. It says our carelessness is their secret weapon, prevent forest fires. I I guess if you have people that are trying to fight forest fires, then you can't have people that are helping with a war effort. I don't know. This just seems like so pointed to me that and it was made by the government. So the government made this really racist propaganda during that time. Here's Donald Trump. And there was a Hurricane Dorian coming. I don't remember. I think it was like last year or something. And here's the model, the science model of where the hurricane might go. So this is probably where it's going to go, but then after that, it could go any of these places in this little blob. But Donald Trump had been talking about how it would go to Alabama. So he drew this little like extra circle on here to say that it would be in Alabama because he's trying to get you to believe that he is very intelligent. I wouldn't call that art though. Okay, modern art a lot of times is made for money, like for reals. I feel like Hello Kitty is a money-making deal. Um, this is a porg. I remember watching the new Star Wars movie and thinking like, what the heck is that Pokemon doing in my Star Wars movie? But I didn't like the new Star Wars trilogy at all. And the Porg, the only purpose of the Porg is to sell stuffed animals and like little trinkets to kids. And then of course Nikes. You know, you can buy some Nike shoes, but if you want to buy Jordans, they're like real expensive, and that's for making money for the company and Michael Jordan. Okay, social commentary. So this means that you're trying to say something about society and what's important about society. A lot of times social commentaries point out problems. Say like, we need to solve this. So this is a comic, a political cartoon about the kids in cages, the immigrant children. And it's comparing these cages with children to Nazis and saying this is not a concentration camp, I repeat, because I don't know if you remember watching the news during this time, but they were talking about, when this was big in the media, about how the kids were getting cultural expressions, and they all had places to sleep and they could bathe and stuff. But then when we found out the truth about what was going on there, which of course was really locked down, like a lot of them couldn't take a shower and they were having lice that were showing up in like huge numbers, and the kids are just packed into these little cages, and just like atrocious, absolutely inexcusable conditions for these kids. And so this is a cartoon about that being a problem. So whoever made this cartoon believes that's a problem. Obviously, it is a problem, right? Turntables is a new song by Janelle Monáe. She made it to go with a Netflix movie that I haven't seen yet, but I will watch it. And it is definitely a social commentary on how it is time for people of color to be able to express themselves, get justice, and have equity in this country. The other day, my daughter was listening to Melanie Martinez, and she was like confused, kind of. Because if you listen to the words in Melanie Martinez's song, it's like, I like some plastic surgery, right? Everyone should get plastic surgery that they can be better looking. Or when we're talking about each other and gossiping about each other, that's what we do. Like, that's our favorite pastime. But she's doing a social commentary on that. So she's, of course, not talking, she's talking about those things being positive to bring attention to them, because she does not believe that they are good. So, and of course, sometimes we just make art because it's pretty. It beautifies things. This is the Taj Mahal. I believe it was made by some important guy for a woman that he loved. And we still love it today because it's just amazing. It's beautiful, it's breathtaking, it's mesmerizing. And so it is famous to this day, because people just want to see it and be amazed by it. Also, these decorations. So, of course, you don't have to decorate your house, right? Like, you don't have enough money, you can't. It took, when Mr. Arneson and I bought our first house, like, it took years to decorate it because we just didn't have enough money to even think about that. Now I have decorations because I've been collecting them over the past 11 years. But this is better than just having nothing on your wall, right? This is more interesting. And for some reason, like with all of these sticks in different directions, it makes me feel calm. And then of course you could just have a pillow on here. Probably nobody even sits on this bench. It's just there to look nice and comforting. All right, I think that's all I've got for you guys. Have a good day.